Welcome back to another Python tutorial. So it's been a while. Well, it's definitely been a while since we've last talked about this topic, but we're actually going to go back to our Win32com library. So in this particular video, we're going to expand on a topic that I've already talked about before. And that topic is how to create basically Python Excel formulas that you can call in your Excel workbook. And so if you'd watched my previous video on that, basically, in essence, what we were doing was we were creating a Python object that was in a sense going to be our comm object. We would register that comm objects with Windows, and then we would create an instance of it inside of our Excel workbook using VBA. And then what we would do is we would do all that inside of a VBA function. And so what that allowed us to do is we could now have formulas inside of Excel that were powered by Python. So you could do things now where maybe you wanted to web scrape, or maybe you wanted to take JSON and parse it, or convert a string to JSON, something along that nature. Well, in VBA, that might have been a little bit more challenging, but in Python, it was a lot easier to do it. So we all of a sudden were able to integrate that Python functionality into our Excel workbook through this bridge of the Win32com library. With the Python formulas, to be more exact, I never really covered a particular topic, which was what if you wanted to make a Python array formula? So a formula that potentially could return multiple results and be able to display multiple results and populate multiple cells all at the same time. I never really did that topic because I wasn't able to figure out how to do it. Unfortunately, what basically had happened is I had a wonderful thought come into my head a couple of days ago, and I said, I wonder if you could do that. And I experimented a little bit, and lo and behold, I got it to work. So in this video, we're going to be creating Python formulas that can almost in a sense be like Excel array formulas. So if there are multiple items returned back from our formula, it will just populate either multiple columns or multiple rows in our particular Excel workbook. So for example, right here, I have a formula called links from pages, and it's a list. So basically what that means is it's going to return a list. And if I run this particular formula, it makes a request, it goes and gets the links, and then it's going to populate all of the values that it got from that particular parse. I can also change it where I can change my value, and then as you can see, my formula responds to the change in value. So this is using a list example, so you return back a list. And then this one is if you want to return almost like an array back, so one that could have basically multiple rows and columns worth of data. And so inside of our example, we'll do both. So I'll show you how to create both functions. But this is a really powerful tool because now you can start doing some really interesting stuff, whether that be related to API requests, whether that's related to web scraping, or a whole host of things. All of the sudden, you now have just been given this access point where you can now take a bunch of information and return it to an Excel formula. So really cool stuff. Now, I can't guarantee this is going to work on everyone's version of Excel, but at least with mine it did. It didn't seem like I was changing too much, but I do want to kind of put that disclaimer out there. Just for reference, I am running the latest version of Excel, so whatever it is on October 12th, 2019. So with that being said, let's jump on into it. Not that one, the next one. It was funny, I actually changed the location of my file and it kind of screwed it up a little bit. So where to begin? First thing we're going to do is we're going to import some libraries. Basically, these are going to be the libraries that we're going to be using inside of our class object. The first one is going to be Pythoncom, and so we're going to be using the Pythoncom library to do a couple things. One is to create a GUID, which is basically a unique identifier for our particular comm object. And then there's also constants inside this particular library that we can reference when we're registering our particular comm object. So we want to register it a particular way. Additionally, we're going to also import our requests library. So we're going to be making a request. We're going to also want to import win32com.client. And so this is going to be our mechanism to interact with comm objects from Excel. Additionally, we're going to have from BS4, import beautiful soup. So this is going to be our parser from when we go out and parse our web page. So from here, we need to create a class object. So this class object is basically going to store all the methods and attributes about our particular comm object library. Additionally, if we want to create certain functions that return values, then what that will do is it will actually allow you to what is the word? It's going to actually allow you to have those methods act as formulas inside of Excel. So to create a class, we're just going to use the class keyword, and then we need to give a name to our particular class. This isn't really anything super important for the comm object, but again, you should try to give something that's meaningful. So we'll call it, Python array formula, and then from here, we can just do our little colon, and then we're good to go. So for the next section, there's a couple different pieces of information that we have to basically describe about our particular comm object. The first one is we need to do underscore reg, and you got to make sure it's spelled correctly, CLS ID underscore. And then this is going to be Pythoncom, and then it's going to be create GUID. And so this is going to create a unique identifier that would only exist for this particular comm object. And so it would, well, in essence, it has to be unique. So this is something we're going to be registering with Windows. And so we need some kind of unique identifier where if we call this GUID, it will always return this particular comm object, because sometimes you can have multiple comm objects with the same program ID. So for example, excel.application. There can be multiple versions of Excel on your particular system, but they all have the same program ID. However, the GUID should be different. Additionally, once we've done that, don't want to do that yet, we can go to the next one, which is we need to register the object as either an exe file or as a DLL file. Now, this is something on my personal computer I've been very restricted, but then weird enough, on my work computer, it's actually been a little bit more flexible. So it's underscored reg, underscore CLS CTX, and then underscore. It's going to be Pythoncom, and then CLS, where is it? CLS CTX, and then we want it to be a local server. And so as a local server, it's going to be an exe file. The alternative is inproc server, and that will be a DLL file. Additionally, we can also give our our comm object a program ID. And so that's denoted by reg underscore prog ID, so short for program ID. And then this one is something that's a little bit more user friendly. It's more user readable. And so you want to give it something useful, something that people can reference. And so we'll call it Python array formula, something like that, right? And so this is the program ID that we'll actually be calling from Excel VBA. So pretty cool stuff. Additionally, we can also provide a description about our library. So for example, I might want to provide a description so that way I can easily, get some context as to what it does. So we'll say this comm object will allow us to create array formulas in Excel using Python, something like that. Okay, so that's a description about our particular comm object. Additionally, there is another thing that we're going to have to make available. So we want to define the public methods that are basically that can be seen by a user in a sense. And so what we'll do is we'll do underscore public underscore methods underscore, and then it's going to be a list of strings where the string is going to be the name of the function that you define in your class that you want to be available. Or more specifically, it's going to be the name of the method that you define in your class that you want to be available to the user. Otherwise, if it's not in this list, it is considered a private method, at which point we cannot access it from VBA or pretty much any language at that point. Additionally, in this example, we're not doing attributes, but there's also a similar setup for attributes. So you can define which attributes you want to make public and which ones you do not want to make public. And so from here, we'll define two methods because these are going to be our two formulas. We'll call the other one grab links, and we'll say array, and then we'll do another one grab links, and then this one will be a list. With formulas, I tend to make them all uppercase just because it's a little bit more, I would say, normal inside of an Excel workbook, because most of the formulas when you call them tend to be all uppercase. And then internally, it does kind of help you distinguish between like actual methods and then methods that you're going to be using as formulas. So that's just kind of my little piece of advice in that regard. Think about it. You don't have to do it like that, but just keep in mind there's kind of like consequences down the road if you decide to go that particular route. So from here, we can start defining our particular methods. And so the first one we'll do is we'll say pull URL. Oh, not that one. Wrong one. That's the one. It's going to be grab links array. And then this one is going to take the object itself. And so basically, this is just something we're passing through to the actual function when we're calling it. It's going to take another one called URL link. And then we're going to have another one called number of links. So this is the number of links that we're planning to return back to the user once they call their formula. By default, we'll set it equal to 1. But if the user does pass through something that's larger than 1, we will change what it is done. Additionally, we can now start going through and building our particular formula. So the first thing that we want to do is I do want to restrict the number of links that is sent back to the user. You don't have to do this, but this is just kind of showing you to add some customizability to your formula. You can do this, and obviously there's multiple ways you can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to limit the number of links to only 10. And so really what we'll do is we'll say if number of links is greater than 10, then what you're going to do is you're going to take number of links and just set it back equal to 10. Otherwise, just leave it as it is. And so what this will do is it will limit the number of links that is returned back to the formula. So if they pass through 20, guess what? Only 10 are going to come back. From here, we can now begin requesting the URL and parsing it. First thing we want to do is request the URL and store the response. And so what we'll do is we'll create a new variable called response. We'll call our request library, and then we'll call the get method, and then we'll pass through the URL link that they pass through in the formula. From here, we can begin parsing it. So we'll grab the HTML content and then parse it. And so we'll store it in a variable called soup. We'll call our beautiful soup object. We'll call our response variable. It has a content property, so this is the content of the page. And then we need to specify a parser. In this case, I'm going to use the HTML parser. Okay, so once we have that, we've now kind of parsed our particular web page. From here, we're going to define a new list. So define a new list to store links. And so we'll create it, we'll call it returned links, and then this will equal just an empty list. From here, what we'll do is we'll find all the anchor tags inside our particular parsed object, and the links that I actually want back are the ones that have an href. So I want these to be kind of like the valid href ones. So find all the anchor tags that have an href attribute. And so what we'll do is we'll say for link in soup dot find all, and then what we'll do is we want to find all the anchor tags, and then I want the href to be equal to true. So if it's true, that means that particular anchor tag does have basically a link to another page, for example, or maybe somewhere else in the particular page. Now from here, we have to store our values in a very particular way. I do have a little note on the code that I will be posting to GitHub, and I'll just kind of copy it over there and then kind of explain what we're doing a little bit. So when we want to pass back, I would say like an array of values or something that's not just a simple list, we have to store it in a particular way. So if Excel is expecting an array back, it will actually populate your cells in a very particular way. So when I have an array, it will basically, you can think of the outer list as serving as our column, and then each inner list serves as a row. So what this would look like is it would populate row 1, row 2, and row 3. Now, additionally, you could expand this so you could have it where it populates the next two if you wanted to. But again, it kind of just depends how you want to set up. This is a pretty simple example at this point, but you can obviously extend it into other stuff as well. So in order to do this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to initialize kind of like a row list. So initialize row list. That's kind of how I like to think about it. So we'll call it row list, and that equals square brackets. And then from here, we're going to add the value to the list. And so we'll say row list is going to append that link. And then more importantly, I just want the href. So we're just going to grab that href attribute. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, add row list to returned links list. And so we'll do returned links tab, and then we'll do append, and then from here we'll add in that row list that we just added a value to. So from here it will do it, so we'll find all the links and all that kind of fun stuff. Again, there's different ways you can write this technically. Probably the more efficient way is just only go through the loops. Only go through the links that you're specifying up here. But what I'm going to show you is, again, if you just wanted to do another way of doing it, because, just say, for example, you were planning to do something else with these strings or whatever, this is kind of what you could do. So what you can say is, when you grabbed all the links, then what you want to do is return the final list to Excel. And so we're going to return returned links. But we want to start from 0, and we want to go to the number of links that we defined up here. And then again, obviously, if it's greater than 10, then guess what? You're only going to get 10 back. And really, that's it for that particular formula in a sense, or that particular method. So what I'm actually going to do is it's almost identical to what we were doing down below for the list one. So, well, it's going to be identical. And so all I need to do here is I'm going to change this one to, instead of list, I'm going to call, instead of array, I'm going to call it list. This one is going to take a URL link, and then it's also going to still have a parameter of number of links. Now from here, I kind of still set the same rule, which is, hey, if it's greater than 10, you need to make sure you don't do that. And then from here, it's actually a little bit simpler. So from here, it's actually just going to be a single list. So all the values will be kind of just thrown on a single row. And so what you can do is you can actually just append directly to the returned links list. And so I'll grab that one, pause it, and there we go. And that's actually pretty much it for that one. So it's almost like, in a sense, a simpler version of this one. And the reason this one's even a little bit more complex is you just have that second row that you're having to maintain. Obviously, some libraries that you might work with, you wouldn't have to do all this kind of like crazy manipulation with the list. The values they might send back to you will actually be in the proper format. So that might make your formulas a little bit easier. But if you had to manually do it yourself, this is kind of how you would approach that particular problem. Okay, so once we've done that, usually what I like to is, just double check everything. I'm praying there's no errors. But the key things is you want to make sure you have all your registration attributes. So you want to make sure you specify whether it's going to be a local server or if it's going to be a DLL. You want to make sure that you have a CLS ID. You want to make sure you have your program ID. Description, it's optional, but it's good to have it. And then really important, you want to make sure that your public methods have been listed. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to call any of your methods that you defined in your particular class object. Okay, and then from here, we need to register our particular comm object. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do if _main. Whoa. Oh, that's a nice little trick. I like that. That makes it a little bit, I guess, easier. First thing we need to do is just let the user know the comm object is being registered. And so what we're going to do is we're going to print registering comm server dot dot dot. Nope. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to first import the register module. And so we'll say import win32 comm, and then we want the server, and then we want the register. And then from here, we can register our particular comm object. And so we're going to use the command line method to register our comm object. And so what we'll do is we'll do win32comm server dot register, and then we're going to use command line, and then you have to just specify the object that you want to register. Well, guess what? It's just this little guy right here. Perfect. Again, just going to do one last look through, make sure things are good. I hope it's all good. Number of links, grab links, yeah. All right. So from here, you can just right click. Oh, I need to save it first. Save as. I have my whole little list of stuff. And then this will just be called video. Perfect. And then again, like to double check. Usually once you save it, then IntelliSense tends to pick up and say, oh, you got a syntax error or something like that. So don't worry about the Pythoncom. For whatever reason, it doesn't think it exists, but it does. It has to basically be, it basically does with the fact that what you're working with is like a DLL file. And so it's not seeing any of these like, methods and properties about it. So you just got to be a little bit careful, but don't worry, it's fine. So then you can right click and then just do run Python file in terminal. It will pop up and it's going to start doing all its stuff. And so this is normally what happens. You kind of have to give, you have to basically authorize it to actually register the particular comm object. So don't be surprised if that comes up. It does request your permission in order to register it. So just keep that in mind. So once you've done that, that's basically step one. Step two is now writing the VBA code to now call your newly registered comm object. So from here, we're going to jump back into Excel. We'll open up our Visual Basics editor. And then from here, I kind of already have some samples, but I'm just going to create a new module. And then we'll call this one Python array formulas, and then I just give it that. Don't do option explicit in this example. And then really all we're going to be doing is just a function. And so it's going to be function. You want to give the function a name. So something like get links, and then this will be our list one. And then it's going to take a URL, and then we want to make sure that's a string. And then we're going to say number of links, and then guess what? That will also be an integer. Now here's the really important part. You want to make sure you specify variant. So you are saying, I don't know what's coming back, but just handle it however you need to. You'll notice up here, I do the same exact thing. That's really the trick behind this whole process, is you have to tell the function you're not really sure what's coming back. So once you've done that, you do need to create a new instance. So create a new instance of your object. Well, we'll just say of your comm object. And so what you'll do is we'll set Python array equal to application create, what is it? I can't remember what it is. VBA create object. I always VBA create object, and then it's the program ID of our particular comm object. And so in this case, it's basically what you specify in the Python script. And then from here, you want to make sure it is a string that is you're passing through. And then from here, what you need to do is we're going to call our method and we're going to store the results of that call in a new variable. And so we'll say call the get links list method. And then this is where things tend to get a little strange with IntelliSense. Like it will automatically change casing, but I think it should be okay this time. So we'll say parsed links equals Python array, and then it's grab links underscore list. We're going to pass through our URL, and then we're going to pass through our number of links. And then that should be good. And then we're going to say return the value back to Excel. And so we'll call our get links list function, and we'll have it equal our parsed links. Perfect. And for the most part, that's pretty much it for that one. The other one's going to look pretty much identical. It's just going to be array. Couple key things though that you really want to make sure is A, you do want to specify that you are passing through the right parameter type. So for example, I'm being very specific here. I'm saying, hey, I'm passing through a string. Here, I'm passing through an integer. When you start communicating between different languages and things along that nature, you really want to be explicit about this type of information, because usually those libraries handle the different data types from the different languages in a very particular way. And so if you don't specify that, it's probably going to pass it through as just like a variant object. And that can get you in trouble, because then it's going to treat something as something that might not need to be treated as. So that's really important that you do that. And then from here, what we can do is we're just going to actually change our formula name. It's going to be get links array, and then get links array. And then here, this one is now going to be grab links array. And then again, if you want to, you could get rid of the underscore if you're being like really syntactically correct, I guess. Okay, so once you've done that, you've now defined your functions, you've defined the input parameters, you've specified what's being returned back. In this case, you're saying, I don't know what's being returned back, handle it the way you think you should handle it. That's probably the most important part of this process, is that you make sure that your functions return back a variant. Alrighty. So from here, we can start calling it. So normally what I do is I just say, where is it? Get links array. And then the first parameter is that. And then the second one is the number of links that I want back. Okay, so that looks good. Seems like that one's working. Going to insert a row, and then we're going to say get links list. Okay. Perfect. So it looks like they worked fine in both examples. So you'll kind of notice here, it does this little blue outline. So it's basically spilling all the values into the appropriate cells. So you got to be a little bit careful with these formulas at the same time, because if you're not, it will actually create an issue where it's going to overwrite certain cells, and then I think it returns like a pound reference or something like that. So just be a little bit cognizant of that when you're doing it. Otherwise, you might get some stuff that you're not necessarily intending. Something you can also do too, well, I'm not entirely sure. So array formulas do work. You just got to be a little bit careful, because obviously in this case, like, there were more values back. There wasn't enough values returned back, so it just returns an NA. Now, nice thing is though, obviously what it's doing too is it's going through and populating everything. So you just got to be a little bit careful on that, is just making sure that what's being returned back is correct and things along that nature. And then also something you need to think about is speed. Uh, Obviously, you got to be a little bit careful if you have a bunch of these formulas and each one of them is supposed to do something like parse a web page. That can take a little bit of time, especially if you're calling multiple different pages. It can create a big headache. APIs probably not going to have that much of an issue because most time it's a pretty straightforward process and Python handles that stuff pretty fast. But just keep that in mind. Some of these formulas, they can definitely, I would say, slow down things. So you just want to be a little bit cognizant of that. Um, but again, just to kind of show you, I can put in 15 and it's still going to only return back the 10. So yeah, that condition that we had set in there was saying like, hey, you don't want to, return back more than 10. It is working. So that's really important too. But at this point, that's pretty much it. So this is how you create Python user-defined functions that return, in a sense, arrays or multiple values at once. And then also this is how you call those Python user-defined functions from Excel VBA by creating your own Excel VBA user-defined functions. So really cool stuff. I had a lot of fun with this because first of all, I was just able to get it to work. I couldn't find anything online that showed you how to do this. And so I had to like experiment a ton, but I was able to get it to work. So I was really excited about that because like I said, I've spent a lot of time on this topic and this was like the one thing that was just, I couldn't figure out. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm overthinking this. And literally, I'll be honest, the breakthrough was this. I just didn't realize to do that. I was like, wait a minute, with typical array formulas, if you want to create like your own user-defined function that can return an array, you do variant. I said, wait a minute, I wonder if you can do that with the Python library. I said, it should work then, right? Lo and behold, it worked. So really exciting stuff. I'm not going to be posting this particular file to GitHub. I have a more detailed one over here. So this is the one that I will be posting to GitHub. Keep in mind, things have been named a little bit differently. So for example, Python object library, Python web scraper. In fact, I actually have an extra method in here. So this is just showing like a traditional method where you're not returning anything. It would just take a range that we're passing through and then populate that range. So, just different things so you can see it. Everything's been documented. Things like each of the registration processes and things like that. Each one has documentation on the function, the name of the parameter, description, the expected type, if it's a required parameter or not. So a lot of good information, definitely more detailed than what I had done in the video, but this should be more than enough to kind of get you started, where if you want to start building these type of formulas on your own, I would encourage you to definitely look at this file. And then also I have a file here. And so again, more detailed, just telling you what it's doing, how it's going to populate your range and things along that nature. Nothing super crazy. It's just kind of more detailed information for everybody in case they're like curious how it's working. Because if you were like me, there's no documentation out there. So please share it to your heart's desire. So that way other people don't have to go through the same headache. So with that being said, though, if you have any questions, feel free to put them down in the comments below and I will try to get back to you. And then also, if you could, please make sure to like the video. We always appreciate the support, and definitely like a video like this. I want it to reach as many people as possible because this is something where it can save people a ton of time and save them from numerous headaches. And so this is definitely one of those videos where feel free to share it if you think someone else can benefit from it, because like I said, there's not a lot of documentation on this and it's really, really, really frustrating. So definitely do that. And then also, if you're not already, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos. I am going to kind of do a little bit of a teaser right here. So I have been working on a new topic. So in fact, this is probably the perfect video to introduce this topic. For any of you who have loved the Win32 comm series, I'm going to start talking about the Python net library. And so I hope I have it up. Is it not this one? It's not. But you know what? I still have my token. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. So this is a really cool library, and I think a lot of you will actually like it. There's that, Python, and then Python net. I'm still kind of in the process of writing things and things along that nature, but it's kind of getting to that point where things are kind of coming together and I'm understanding what needs to be done and everything like that. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the Python net library in order to, in a sense, I mean, I guess this is one way to think about it, which is we're going to be able to reference the .NET framework from Python. And so what that means is we can now start accessing different components from the .NET framework. So anything that is written for the .NET framework, things like VB.NET, C#, F#, any of those languages that can be compiled to the .NET framework using CLR, what that means is we can access all of those components from Python in most examples. I mean, there's obviously going to be some caveats to that, but generally speaking, we should be able to access those components. Why would we even want to do this? Well, basically, the Win32com library is, in a sense, referencing old technology. I guess that's how you want to think about it. It's not to bash comm objects, but Microsoft has definitely kind of moved away from that direction a little bit, and they're pushing more of the .NET framework towards developers. And so naturally, if we kind of want the latest and greatest, we're going to have to use that framework. And with the Python net library, we can actually access that framework from 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 Python. And to kind of kick off the series, we're going to basically do what we were doing with Win32com, but we're going to be using what's called the Microsoft Office Interop Excel assembly. And so basically this little assembly is tapping into the same object model that Excel VBA does. And we're going to be able to control that assembly from the actual Python net library. So it's a really exciting topic. There's a lot to it. There are some, I would say, are caveats to it. And there's things that can kind of get us into trouble. And it sounds like things were broken. But lucky for me, what I decided to do is I said, wait a minute. I said the same issues that they're running into seem to be resolved in the Win32com library. I said, so if we can technically recreate what Win32com was doing in the Python net, then technically we should be able to do exactly what we were doing there. And if anything, we might be able to even do things like have IntelliSense. Now, I'm not positive if 100% we can do that, but I've kind of started exploring that topic and I haven't run into any major roadblocks. And so ideally what you could kind of initially expect from this series is I would almost say we could create like a Python library for Excel. Like you could almost, in a sense, call Python objects in a very traditional Pythonic sense. And then if we were using this library inside of like Visual Studios and things like that, it would actually have things like IntelliSense. So it's really cool. There's still a lot of work I have to do for that, but kind of keep an eye out for it. It is coming and it is kind of starting to meld together into a complete project. And I think a lot of people will like it, especially those who enjoyed the Win32com series. We're basically going to be able to do that, but just upgrade it a little bit more. And we're going to get access to a whole bunch of different libraries and everything along that nature. So there's really a lot of exciting stuff that is about to be coming. So you definitely want to keep an eye out for everything. But with that being said, I'll let you get on with your day. So thank you again for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.